Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2004 Chevy Corvette Convertible. Up front is a 5.7 liter V8, and down below is a 6-speed manual transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this C5 Corvette for two reasons. First of all, I am celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States by reviewing a bunch of Corvettes, and today is the 5th generation. But the second reason is the fact that I truly believe that this is one of the best sports cars of not only the recent era, but possibly of all time. And so today we're gonna break into why that is and share with you a lovely yellow C5. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. Last but not least, huge thank you to North Naperville Autos for letting me borrow their C5 for today's video. More on them towards the end of the video, but if you'd like to browse their inventory, you can do so down in the description below. But let's get back to that 5.7 liter LS1 under the hood. Well, it makes about 350 horsepower, and that was standard for all C5s besides the Z06. The Z06 got the LS6 that made 405 horsepower, and I've reviewed that on the channel. It's a glorious engine, glorious vehicle, but this is the more standard 350, and honestly, it's more than plenty. It propels this Corvette down the avenue quicker than really you need it to be, but it's definitely nice to have. Now, this was a pretty big upgrade over the C4 Corvette of the 1990s that had the LT1, and although the LT1 is a great engine and the LT4 is a great engine, this is a better engine. It's a lot more modern of an engine. And so if you're buying a car here in 2026, that would be my recommendation, is to get this sort of newer, updated vehicle. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 6-speed manual transmission. Now, the C5 is the first generation to have a rear-mounted transaxle transmission. So the transmission is actually at the back of the car to help with its 50-50 weight distribution. Still shifts normally. You're not going to notice that it's a transaxle, but you will notice in the handling, because this actually does handle very, very well. Last but not least, it of course is rear-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the C5 Corvette? It is great. It's balanced, it's fun, it has that throaty V8, it has all the power you're really going to need. If you want a good weekend cruiser, C5 Corvette. If you want a track toy, even in its non-Z06 form, C5 Corvette. You want a throaty, fun, loud convertible? C5 Corvette. It's really good at all of those things, and that's what makes this car great. It handles well, has plenty of power, it's modern enough, it has traction control and ABS. Visibility is not wonderful, especially out the back with the convertible top up. There are some really big blind spots, and the ride is okay. It's not fantastic, but it is more sport-oriented, so to be expected. But that powertrain is wonderful and still withstands the test of time now 22 years later. First gear, second, yeah. That's more power, more speed, more agility than I will ever really need. Even here in 2026, I don't need more than that. I can go buy something new for sure, but I don't need anything more. That is plenty of power, plenty of fun. And that's part of the reason that makes the C5 great, but I'm getting ahead of myself. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 6 gauges. Off to the left is my coolant temperature, oil pressure, and tachometer. And off to the right is the speedometer, battery voltage, and fuel. To the right of the gauge cluster, we do have options for that little gauge down at the bottom. You can select a whole bunch of different information, which is really, really nice. And off to the left of the gauge cluster, we have our head-up display adjustments, because this does have a HUD, which is very cool. On the steering wheel, we just get an airbag and horn. That's it. And off to the left, we have our fog light and trunk release. And moving on to the door, we we have a climate control vent, we have our memory seat options, power mirrors, power locks, and power windows, as well as, of course, the latch to get in and out. Moving into the center, we get one single climate control vent along with the hazard switch. There is an aftermarket radio here, and then we get our climate controls. Interestingly enough, dual zone climate here in the C5, although there's not a whole lot of real estate to be heating or cooling, you still get dual zone. AC, of course, you do get a 12-volt outlet and a cup holder off to the right, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test, and it fails like every Corvette in the history of ever. Shifter is off to the left. It is somewhat unforgiving, and it does this super annoying thing at slow speeds where it wants you to shift from first to fourth. If you're under 33% throttle, it will force you into fourth, and it is very annoying. You cannot override it unless you go into fourth and then into second. Really, really annoying at slow speeds. Then we do have some buttons for our active handling, which is traction control. And then we have our selective ride. So we have Tour and Sport. Sport, of course, will stiffen up the suspension. Tour will make it a little bit cushier. This is for the weekend. This is for going to the ice cream store, whatever it might be. And Sport is definitely for those more spirited drives. We do have a big center console, and this is where you'll also find the gas cap release and a 12-volt outlet. The seats are comfortable. They do say Corvette on them, as well as we do have this big Corvette badge in between the two seats. They're fine. They're comfy enough. They're very like late 90s GM feeling, which is good, but they don't really have very high bolsters. Would have liked to have seen that here in the Corvette. Now, we don't have any back seats, but we do have a trunk, so let's hop out and talk about that. All right, coming around the back of the Corvette convertible, and I want to talk about this section of the car just for a brief moment. So right now, we do have a trunk. We can pop it here on the key fob. Very, very nice. And of course, we do have the convertible top. However, the Z06 had a hardtop version of this, still with this same trunk. However, in the era, you could also find it with a hatchback that had a more sloping back. I will show footage of a hatchback now. You could tell that around the back, it is a little bit different. So there were a couple different body styles found of the Corvette. We didn't really see that moving forward. Like, definitely the C8 still has like one body style for all of the vehicles. Of course, it gets different like wings and aero and things like that, but actual like sheet metal is usually the same on the C8s. Well, that wasn't the case here on the C5s. So pull this up, and we do get a pretty sizable trunk. Plenty of space to fit your 2 lawn chairs and your giant board explaining how special your specific Corvette is for the next cars and coffee, so the younger generation really truly learn how great the Corvette is via your piece of cardboard. That will all fit back here, as well as all of Barb's groceries will fit perfectly. It's a decent sized trunk for what it is. It's not this like giant U-Haul style, and of course your Buick Roadmaster or CTSV wagon is gonna have way more space, but that wasn't really the main attraction when it came to the C5. So there you go. That is the trunk, not the hatch, of the C5 Corvette. Pop it down like that, and there you go. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I do really like the look of the C5. I will admit, I grew up around the C5. It was in Test Drive 5 and the Need for Speed games, and a lot of the content and media I consumed when I was young was C5 content. And so I have a love for these cars because they were so iconic. The cover of my Hot Wheels traveling case had a C5 on the front. I had a million C5 Hot Wheels, and the C5R was like dominating the racing world. So I've always had a love affair for this. I love the yellow color. A neighbor of mine growing up had a yellow C5. So I think there's a lot of nostalgia in there. I love the pop-up headlights, and overall, I just think it's a good looking vehicle and very true to the Corvette name up until the C8, where they changed it pretty drastically. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the C5 Corvette? Well, I love it a lot. This isn't my first go around with the C5, and the only reason I'm re-reviewing one is for my Corvette week here on the channel. I wanted to celebrate as many generations of Corvette as I can, and I've driven now all of them besides the C1 and C3. I think this is one of the best sports cars ever made for several reasons. First of all, the way that it drives, the 350 horsepower, the rear transaxle, the 6-speed manual, all of that together is a timeless combination. It still is just as fun to drive here today as it was when it rolled out of Bowling Green, Kentucky 22 years ago. That's a big win. I also like the way that they look. The LS1 is serviceable and still a modern enough engine to where you could still find parts and whatnot. You can also find these for affordable prices. You know, you're not gonna pay an arm and a leg. You're definitely not gonna pay C7 or C8 prices. So you're still gonna get a wonderful V8 Corvette experience, but for a lot cheaper. They came in multiple body styles, so you can find one of these in this convertible. They also sold the hatchback and of course the notchback as well. You could get any color. You know, there's a lot of aftermarket support. If you want to bolt on Z06 brakes and go to a track day, you could do that. There's tons of big brake kits. There's tons of tire and wheel options. You could do aero, you could do modifications. I've been in drift cars that are C5s, and those are absolutely wonderful. Shout out to Kumo Tire for that ride along, as well as Hero cars. Out in Joliet, I rode in a C5 Corvette out on the drift course in the rain. It's such an adaptable car. It can be used for a lot of enthusiast situations. It's affordable, it's modern, and that's it. Those are the reasons, but I think those are incredibly solid reasons. And I think the C6 is getting there too. I think the C6 fills in this gap pretty well. Maybe not the ZR1 or Z06, those are still pretty pricey, but the C6 base models still have this same kind of character, same kind of modernness as well. I think the C7 won't really reach this status. I think there's a lot of tech in the C7, as well as that sort of post-bankruptcy GM, so it's a little bit cheaper feeling, and it was a little bloated as well. I just don't have this love for the C7 as I do for the other generations. So I think this will kind of be the king for a long time to come. Again, maybe only dethroned by the C6, but time will tell. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to North Naperville Autos for letting me borrow their C5 for today's video. They're absolutely wonderful. They have so many vehicles on their lot. They have interesting inventory. They are Carfax certified. They offer financing, and they will ship to the 48 states, as well as they offer mobile detailing. So they are a one-stop shop for anything automotive here in the Chicago suburbs. So please go check out North Naperville Autos with the link down in the description below. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.